What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Let's Talk MMA podcast, and hope you guys have an amazing day. Thoughts and prayers out to Ben Askren. He has been hospitalized. I think he's on a ventilator because of severe pneumonia, and the doctors are thinking about doing a lung transplant. I don't know if they have like a GoFundMe or anything like that to support him, and I just pray the best for Ben Askren. Hopefully he wakes up, doesn't need a lung transplant, and is healthy. Very serious condition. Do you guys think AI would ever replace the fighters in MMA? So instead we'll have like robot fighters, essentially who can make the strongest robot as the best fighter. But before that, AI will be part of at least like MMA training or doing the new rankings. I think the UFC wants to do that. They might have AI score fights. Maybe the matchmakers become AI. And imagine if that goes into other sports. Like they'll have like robot basketball players with the athleticism that humans can never reach. Like imagine in basketball, these guys are doing like double somersaults, slam dunks and stuff. And in MMA, the robots are throwing 720 axe kicks with perfect technique. That would be very interesting. But I don't think it'd be great for the athletes, obviously, right? There wouldn't be any more athletes, right? But going to UFC 317, Paulo Costa pulled out, and they're going to be rescheduling his fight with Roman Kopylov to another card. So the next pay-per-view is going to have 11 total fights. There's still some good fights on there. Of course, the main event is great. Co-main event is good. Dariush versus Moicano is a good matchup. Brandon Royval versus Joshua Van is a good fight. Peyton Talbot versus Felipe Lima is a good fight as well. Jack Hermanson versus Gregory Rodriguez, decent. Terrence McKinney versus Slava Claus is a decent fight as well. Man, Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov was a good part of the card, but Costa just can never make it to the fight. The last time he fought was against Sean Strickland over a year ago. Since 2020, the guy's only fought 5 times, which is averaging 1 fight a year, and he doesn't have a single win against anybody who's currently in the UFC. Luke Rockhold, Yoel Romero, Uriah Hall, Johnny Hendricks, Owale Bangbolshe, and Gareth McClellan. None of these guys fight in the UFC, and those are all of his wins. Man, he needs to win against Roman Kopylov. If he loses the Roman, which it should be a good fight, I can see how both guys win, but if he loses that fight, he'll be 1-5 in his last 6 fights, with his only win being against Rockhold at that time. But man, Ilia versus Charles is such a great fight. But did you guys see Ilia standing next to Raul Rosas Jr.? So Ilia's been talking about how he's 183 pounds, he's too big for featherweight, but he looks smaller than Raul, who's a bantamweight. Charles Oliveira cannot be underestimated going into this fight. He is going to be so much bigger than Ilia in there. As I've been saying, he could wrestle his way to a win, with of course having the knockout potential at all times. Ilia's talking about how he can KO Charles in the first round, but it could go the other way too. Yes, Charles does have the kind of style that can get Ilia a first round knockout, but the same the other way. It's a car crash. Like these two guys are going to be running headfirst at each other, and one of them is going to go down. But man, I've been watching a lot of the training footage from Ilia Topuria. The guy's looking amazing at camp. Boxing sharp, great Greco-Roman takedowns. That is such a great fight, man. Right now, that's the second best fight of the year after Dricus versus Hamzat. You can't beat that fight. Dricus and Hamzat, the only fight that could beat it, which is maybe never happening, is of course the Aspinall and Jones fight. And Dana has a new update. Well, not really an update. He's just saying the same thing he always says. Oh, the fight's gonna happen, guys. Okay. You've been saying it ever since the Stipe fight. And Jon Jones looks like a retired fighter right now, as he said over and over again that he's not fighting Tom Aspinall. And the crazy thing is too, Dana said he'll know if the fight's happening within like a few weeks. Didn't he say like over a month ago that the fight is happening? Now he's saying he's gonna have to see it in the next few weeks if it happens. Like he's just hoping the fight happens. He's trying to put pressure on Jones to take the fight, but Jones holds all the leverage. So if it happens, it's only going to happen on Jon Jones' terms. Honestly, man, I'm kind of like over it already. I don't care. Like, imagine it was just their plan the whole time to drag it out this long, milking the anticipation of the fight. I can imagine that with the whole TV deal and stuff. Like, they could have all got together and talked about it this way. Have a whole new type of promotion for this specific fight. But I doubt it. Dana said like 100 times in these press conferences that the fight is going to happen. But after you hear it like the 10th time from him, it's hard to believe that the fight's actually happening. It sounds more like he wishes it's gonna happen. Like he wishes that Jones will accept it. But you guys ever see this meme? This is probably what it was like negotiating for Jon Jones, because Ariel Helwani said that they did agree to give Jones a lot of money for the fight, but maybe Jones just kept asking for more stuff to see how much he can actually get out of this, knowing that he will never fight Tom Aspinall. He's always talking about how great his Thailand vacation is, or whatever he's doing over there with the Russian fighters. Yoel Romero's there too, and they're like dancing Dagestani traditional style. The man looks like he's retired. Tom Aspinall should be fighting someone else. And it's not fair. Like he shouldn't have to fight someone else, but what can he do? He has no leverage. Even as an interim champion, he has no leverage. The only way he can gain leverage is if he beats the other contenders. Like if he beats Ciryl Gane and then he beats Jailton Almeida and then he rematches Volkov. The leverage at that point is that he's destroyed the entire heavyweight division. Is that what he has to do for the UFC to actually favor him in all this? It's crazy. But here I am talking about the fight more. I think how they handled the Jones and Aspinall fight was one of the most miscalculated things they've ever done. They put all the chips in the Jon Jones basket, and he just took the basket and ran off with it. Still champion, which is crazy. But in other news, we do have some more fights that are in the works. Michael Page versus Cannonier, which is an amazing fight. Michael Page staying at middleweight when he said before that he wasn't going to stay there. He was going to go to welterweight again, but the Cannonier fight is great stylistically. It's not a wrestler. This guy's going to stand up with him, and I actually think Michael Page beats him. It's hard to just beat MVP with just striking. Like, sure, Bullet is a very good striker, and even at his level, he couldn't deal with Michael Page that well. This might be a hot take, but it shows how styles make fights. MVP could give JDM a tougher fight than some of the other top-ranked welterweights. Not that he would win, as I think JDM is the better striker, especially now. But because JDM doesn't offensively wrestle, he would be fighting a masterful striker at full capacity. But it does go another way too. Wrestlers will have an easier time beating MVP than other strikers like JDM. Sean Brady, for an example, would be a disastrous matchup for MVP compared to JDM. MVP striking is so good that he made Ian Gary avoid it like the plague. Imagine MVP in his prime fighting these guys. But keep him away from the wrestlers, man. We don't want to see that. He's never going to be a champion. He's never going to fight for the belt. So we don't need to see him against wrestlers. The pathway to a title shot is met with a lot of different fighting styles, but he's not on the pathway to a title shot. So let's give him some fun fights against good strikers. The last thing I want to see is him fight Anthony Hernandez or something, or Reinier de Ridder. Let's skip those fights. Give him like Paulo Costa and Cannonier and also Belal versus Usman is absolutely the fight to make, but knowing the UFC, they're going to do Belal Muhammad versus Gabriel Bonfim or something. But Belal versus Usman would be such a good fight. Both great wrestlers. Usman has the power advantage, Belal has the volume and a slight cardio advantage maybe. I think both in their prime, Usman would have won. But with this version of Belal, I think he's a better striker than Usman and could defend all of the takedowns. So I'll lean to Belal winning, but it should be a great one. And this is why the welterweight division is, in my opinion, the most exciting division in the UFC right now. I won't say it's the most skilled. I don't think it's the most skilled, but I think it's the weight class with like the most going on. It's the busiest weight class and the most competitive. Well, actually, Islam moving up to welterweight could make it the most skilled as well, along with JDM and Belal and Shavkat and Sean Brady. Like, all these guys are very skilled. So I would say welterweight, after all of UFC history, is finally the best division. And we were never able to call welterweight the best. Look at all of the guys who are competitive with each other and orbiting a title shot. There's JDM as the champion, Islam Makhachev the title challenger, Belal Muhammad, Sean Brady, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman, Ian Gary, Michael Morales. That's 10 fighters who are in like a similar tier with each other. Like, all these guys can fight each other. That is crazy. This is the best welterweight has ever been by a long shot. Better than GSP's era, better than Usman's era, better than Hendricks and Lawler's era, better than Woodley's era by far. Like, that was maybe the worst welterweight division ever. But I think whoever wins between JDM and Islam is who we name this era after. If JDM beats Islam, this is the JDM era. If Islam beats JDM, then it'll be the Islam Makhachev era. So, amazing weight class, man. And bro, do you guys see the UFC 318 ticket prices? To sit in the nosebleeds is $400. Is that normal? Nosebleeds are $400, bro? The cheapest seat is $376.21. That's what I see on Ticketmaster. That seems like crazy expensive. There's a lot of resale seats, so a lot of fans are actually selling their seats after buying it. Not only the pay-per-view is crazy expensive, you gotta also buy a subscription for ESPN Plus. The ticket prices to go to the events are crazy. Man, it just seems like they're milking everything out of this. And you guys see on the pound-for-pound rankings that Alexandre Pantoja is still in the same place. He's actually number 10, with Jack Della Maddalena rising above him, which is crazy. Pantoja's not even being given the privilege of moving up in the rankings leading up to his fight. Every new champion will be ranked above Alexandre Pantoja, besides Tom Aspinall, because, he's Jon Jones' rival, and they can't have that. They have to put him at the lowest possible. They even like Pantoja more than Aspinall. I don't understand how JDM, who just became champion, is ranked above Pantoja, who's the second longest reigning champion, currently behind Islam. He's 9-0 against his divisional rankings. He has to rematch everybody he fights at this point, and is very highly skilled, and is some of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the UFC. There's no reason he should be ranked number 10. I think he should be in the top 5. And if Pantoja beats Kai Kara France, they might drop him one ranking at number 11. This is how the pound-for-pound rankings should be. I would say Islam Makhachev, Merab Dvalishvili, Ilia Topuria, Dricus du Plessis at number 4, Alexandre Pantoja at number 5, Alexander Volkanovski, Tom Aspinall, Jon Jones, Magomed Ankalaev, and Jack Della Maddalena. Those are your champions right now. JDM, who just became champion by beating Belal, should be the lowest ranked champion, right? He doesn't really have like other big wins other than Belal. There could be a debate between him and Ankalaev, but I think Ankalaev should be higher based on the fact that he has more ranked wins than JDM does. He beat Alex, Rakic, Walker, Smith, Santos, Volkan, Krylov. He went to a draw with Jan Blachowicz. That's 7 ranked wins at the time. JDM beat Belal, Burns, Holland. And I guess Rennie Brown's good, but that's it. Right now, JDM should be the lowest ranked champion. But he has the opportunity to rise to the top 5 if he beats Islam. The way they ranked it is just all messed up. Why is Jon Jones number 3? If these are current rankings in like the last 5 years, let's say, Jones has 2 wins in the last 5 years. Cyril Gane's a great win, but he beats Stipe in the other one. 2 wins is not above any of those guys. Honestly, I think I'm even being charitable by having him above JDM and Ankalaev, because in the last 5 years, Ankalaev beat Alex, Rakic, Walker, no contest with Walker, draw with Blachowicz, beat Smith, Santos, Uzdemir, Krylov, and Kuzilaba. Honestly, Jon Jones could logically be a lot lower in the rankings. I guess I'm putting him above them because he's a champion with 1 title defense, I guess, but now I'm thinking about it more. Jones probably should be below Ankalaev at least. Right? But there could be an argument he's below JDM as well. Another debate could be between Merab and Ilia. Merab has beat more ranked fighters, but none of the guys that he beat are on the level of Volkanovski and Holloway. So yes, I do have Merab above Ilia. He has more title defenses, he has more ranked wins, he's beaten multiple of the best fighters in the world. Sean O'Malley twice, Umar Nurmagomedov, Henry Cejudo out of his prime, but still a good fighter. Peter Yan, Jose Aldo also out of his prime. Ilia beating Holloway and Volkanovski honestly keep him afloat at the top of the rankings. He also did beat Josh Emmett and Bryce Mitchell. He did move up to lightweight and beat Jai Herbert. He also has a win against Yusuf Zalal, so I can see the argument for Ilia being above Merab, but as of right now, I would have Merab above Ilia. If Ilia beats Charles though, he's easily ahead of Merab. And depending on how the Islam fight goes with JDM, there could be a debate there too between him and Islam, because just like Ilia, Islam is also moving up. If both of them win, then Islam's still going to be number 1. If Islam loses and Ilia wins, there's a very good argument that Ilia could be above Islam. Because what is the definition of pound for pound? Skills that transition to different weight classes. If Ilia succeeds, whereas Islam fails in that, both of them moving up, you would have to put Ilia as the number 1 pound for pound fighter. And his last 3 wins would be against Charles, Holloway, and Volk. 2 different weight classes. It's very interesting. Now, of course, if Islam wins and Ilia loses, I don't think the rankings change. But it'd be nearly impossible to take Islam's ranking at that point. Like, Merab would have to move up to featherweight and beat Volkanovski or something. But for Alexandre Pantoja to be ranked number 10 behind these new champions doesn't make any sense. There's a non-champion that's ranked above him as well. Alex Pereira is above Pantoja. I think Pantoja should be in the top 5. He should be around Dricus. So this is the debate between number 4 and number 5. Should Dricus or Pantoja be ranked above? So Dricus has 2 title defenses, Pantoja has 3. Dricus beat Strickland twice, Adesanya, Whitaker, Brunson, and Till. That's 6 ranked wins. Pantoja beat Kai Asakura, Steve Erceg, Brennan Royval twice, Brennan Moreno, Alex Perez, and Manel Kape. That's 7 ranked wins. The Adesanya, Strickland, and Whitaker wins are all very big, and Adesanya and Whitaker are top 5 middleweights of all time. Pantoja beat Moreno, who's also top 5 flyweight, but then none of the other guys he beat are there. You know, Brennan Royval is very, very good. I think one of the most skilled flyweights of all time. Manel Kape is good, but he still doesn't have that big win. Erceg is good. Asakura still has to prove himself in the UFC. Alex Perez is decent. I think it's very close, but I might have Dricus above Pantoja, because even in 2020, 5 years ago, Pantoja did lose to Askarov. You guys see some of the fights that Dana and the UFC announced? We'll get to the good fights first, and then gradually go to the fights that nobody asked for, but they made the effort to put on the fights that we didn't want. They've pretty much become the antithesis of what the UFC used to be. Tim Elliott is fighting Kai Asakura on UFC 319. UFC 319 is the Dricus and Hamza fight. That's a good fight. Going to be testing Kai Asakura's takedown defense again. Tim Elliott is a tough grappler, and we get to see if Asakura really is UFC caliber. Then Brian Battle versus Nursultan Ruzaboev. Understandable why Battle's moving up to middleweight. He missed weight for his last one against Randy Brown, but I think he's better at welterweight. You just can't be missing weight like that. You know, he missed twice at welterweight. Once against Gabriel Green, the other one against Randy Brown. But that should be a good fight nonetheless. But unlike him, Nursultan is better at middleweight, so it's going to be a very interesting fight. Jessica Andrade versus Lupita Godinez. It's another solid fight. Corrine Silva versus JJ Aldrich. Okay, skip that fight. Dana also announced Peter Yan is going to be fighting Marcus McGhee, and Movsar Evloev is going to be fighting Aaron Pico, both on the Robert Whitaker versus Reinier de Ridder card. Now, despite the circus matchmaking there, number 2 versus number 13 and Jan versus McGhee, and then number 4 versus UFC debut in Evloev versus Pico, I do think these two fights are going to be exciting. But Jan actually said that he could have waited and would have gotten a title shot, but he didn't want to do that. So he wants to fight, and he's willing to fight anybody. McGhee accepted the fight, and now they're fighting each other. So respect to both guys. I thought they were just pulling names out of a hat and had these two fight each other. Now, Evloev versus Pico seems like a different situation because Volk told the UFC that he wants to fight Evloev, but for some reason, Evloev is fighting Pico. And then after, Volk said that Yair is a potential next opponent. So we'll see. Maybe Volk is going to wait and see what happens with the winner of that fight, because if Pico beats Evloev, he's going to fight for the belt. So maybe Volk waits, or he's going to fight Yair. But regardless of the rankings, I do think both these fights can be tough for the contenders. McGhee, just like Jan, is an excellent striker, has very good shift combos, excellent counter shots, which would be his path to victory there. Pulling from Jan's offense, countering him, and just flow with the combos. I think those two fight at a similar rhythm, where it's going to look like a dance out there. It's going to be a very interesting striking match if Jan doesn't decide to wrestle though. And Aaron Pico has a very good style to beat Movsar Evloev. Explosive wrestler, one-punch knockout power, good boxer, and the fight is 3 rounds, so he can explode for 2 of those rounds to defend the takedowns and try to get the knockout. Even though he's making his UFC debut, it could be a very interesting fight. Now, Evloev's chain wrestling could get him the win, but that could be a tough fight, especially because Pico is continuously getting better. But regardless, man, these aren't the fights that the fans wanted. It just seems like the UFC doesn't put on the fights that the fans want to see. It's like the opposite of what they used to be. The UFC was all about putting on the best fights, but us as the consumer, we're telling them what fights we want. And it's like 90% of the time we don't get them. The matchmaking has been so different. Top contenders and even champions are fighting guys making their UFC debut or aren't even in the top 10. It's crazy. You guys see Alex Pereira weighs 243 pounds. You think he's going to heavyweight? Because if he's fighting Ankalaev, there is no way he's that heavy. Because Ankalaev wants to fight in the next few months. There's no shot Alex is walking at 243. And he looks lean too at 243. Like, he could be fighting in September or October, which is 3 to 4 months away. Ankalaev has been saying that Alex doesn't want to fight him. There could be that. Alex might be moving up to heavyweight and fighting Tom Aspinall. That would be interesting. Imagine with Jon Jones calling out Alex the whole time he wanted to fight Alex, just for Alex to fight Tom. That would be hilarious. On other news, Conor McGregor is out there punching random people at a club. It's great to see him in prime form, back on the winning column. First win in 5 years, and it was a club in Ibiza. Bro probably really took a pill in Ibiza. I don't know what's going on with Conor. Has money ever gone to someone's head more than Conor McGregor? Featherweight Conor McGregor will truly be like a mythical fighter. I don't know what happened to that Conor, who was so inspiring, very motivational, an excellent fighter, and spoke with a clear mind and talked against partying, said that it was a weakness to the soul. Like, he was very different, man. Watching some of Conor's interviews when he was at Featherweight is so depressing sometimes. Conor inspires so many people around the world, and he's essentially like gone against a lot of the stuff that he used to preach about. I don't know. But what is really cool is that Khalil Roundtree is getting custom shorts. Bangkok ready shorts for Khalil Roundtree, and they look really cool too. And I'm a big fan of this. Like, let's get all the ranked fighters custom shorts. They all should have their own. I think I also saw Shavkat's. It's blue and yellow with the Kazakhstan flag or whatever on it. That also looks really cool. I don't know what Jamal Hill's would be. So some of these fighters, they have like their own personality that reflects from their shorts. But then when you get guys like Jamal Hill, like what would Jamal Hill's custom shorts be? It just states all of his excuses he's ever made around his shorts. I don't even know if they would have enough room for that. But I'm also wondering, why didn't they do one for Jamal Hill for this card? They did it for Khalil Roundtree. And then like Rafael Fiziev should have some cool ones based off of Azerbaijan. And maybe something with like a Muay Thai design to it too. Curtis Blades, imagine like a Mortal Kombat theme. That'd be cool. Rizvan Kuniev is just like a steroid needle. Hanato Moicano have all the dollar bills all over his shorts. But would it be American dollars or would it be the Brazilian currency? What would Derek Lewis's custom shorts be? Something Texas related, right? Robert Whittaker would probably be like the Grim Reaper on his shorts or something like that. Reinier de Ridder would be, I guess, something Dutch. Pretty cool. I'm a big fan of the custom shorts. Right now, I think the best Ilia Topurias are kind of sick. Oh, Marabs are cool. Marabs are clean, man. The orange and white, they got the Georgian crosses, and then a Georgian proverb. What does that say? A glorious death is better than a miserable life. This proverb reflects the strong Georgian cultural values of honor, bravery, and dignity. The design of the shorts also includes imagery of a knight battling a tiger in St. George, further emphasizing these themes. Wait, what? There's a knight battling a tiger in St. George? Oh wait, there is. It's right there. It's very transparent on the shorts, but I never noticed that. He has a horseman battling a tiger on his shorts. Nah, dude, these are probably the best UFC shorts. Israel Adesanya's are pretty cool. Has the lightning all over it. Dricus's are really cool as well. well. Have the South African colors. Zhang Weili's are actually really cool. Like the color scheme of it. Red, black, and yellow, but I don't know what the designs are. It looks like tree branches on fire all over her shorts. And it has like the Chinese sigil. Wait, hold on. They're actually dragons. Okay. Dragon tails on fire. I think those are some of the best shorts. I'm gonna be honest, man. I don't like Charles shorts. Like, I get the theme of it, but it looks so low quality, man. I think it's supposed to be like that. Same with Alex's, man. I don't like Alex's shorts. Again, I understand the theme of it, but just looking at it doesn't look great. Alexander Volkanovski's are really cool. It's like a mix of Greek and Australian, I think. Shevchenko's looks very custom. Like, I don't even know what the reference is. It's a bunch of leaves and a dragon and a bullet. The bullet's understandable, but why is there a dragon on there? I think it looks cool. I just don't get the reference. Juliana Pena had a custom shorts. I didn't even notice she had custom shorts. I guess I was just paying attention to Kayla destroying her out there. They look pretty cool. They're very, like, simple. Looks really cool, though. Paddy Pimblett, of course, the orange vintage shorts. Bro, get Stipe shorts out of here. How could they do the man so dirty with his custom shorts? They couldn't give him the Croatian colors. They have the pattern of his vintage shorts that's like paying homage to Mirko Cro Cop, and they just made it black and gray. So lazy, bro. If they just gave him the Croatian colors that him and Cro Cop both had, it would be top tier custom shorts, 100%. Honestly, a lot of the American custom shorts are very lazy, bro. Like, I don't know why. Max Holloway's are cool. Like, they actually tried with his. I don't get Dustin's. It's like a bunch of leaves. Maybe something Louisiana reference. At least they give it some good design, you know? But then you look at Justin Gaethje's, you look at Michael Chandler's, and you look at Stipe's. They're all just black and gray. Gaethje and Chandler have the American flag on theirs, with no American colors. It's all just black and gray and white. Just put the American colors, bro, and it would look amazing for both Gaethje and Chandler. But it's crazy that none of them have the American colors besides Holloway. No other American does. I don't understand why. And speaking of American, they absolutely put a lot of effort on Jon Jones. Dana made sure whoever made those shorts to do their best. So it's the red, black, and white that has the Christian cross, Philippians 4:13 on the side. It's either lion or tiger designs on it. Looks very cool. Leon's looks cool. It's just they're all pretty much like one or two colors. It has the English flag, Jamaican flag, and a crown flag. I don't know what that is, but all of it's like a different tint of green. And for the pound for pound #1 fighter in the world, honestly, man, I don't think Islam's are that great. It's just a map on his shorts and a traditional dagger on the side. Again, the reference is cool. All of these guys have cool references and theme for their shorts, but just to look at it, just the design itself, I don't think it's that great. I'm gonna be honest, man. If you just put a map on their shorts, I don't think that ever looks good. Brandon Moreno's is decent. He has the Aztec dragon. I think it looks decent. Bro, do you know how sick they can make Hamza's shorts with the wolf and everything? Bro, they can't drop the ball on Hamza's shorts. Hopefully they have his before he fights Dricus. But big fan of the custom shorts. They should absolutely do it for every fighter, or at least every ranked fighter. And with that, let's go to the questions. And we're going to start with Sushan Tikop. If Michael Chandler fought smartly, made adjustments according to opponents, and used wrestling to his advantage, what would have been the alternate results of his fights, and would he have become a UFC champion? No. I don't think he would have beaten Charles. He fought Charles well, but I don't think he would have beaten him. I don't think he would have beaten Justin Gaethje. Maybe. Because Gaethje's takedown defense has always been very good, unless he's fighting Khabib or something. Most other guys, he's defending their takedowns. He did get taken down by Fiziev, which is very interesting, but it's like one of those, you don't expect a striker to shoot a takedown kind of thing, you know? And that's why it's very important for strikers to also implement takedowns in their skill sets, because you never know when it can actually work against a good defensive wrestler. But I can see how he could beat Justin Gaethje, wrestle him more, try to get the back, rear naked chokes, all that stuff. He could have beaten Dustin if he didn't just like throw haymakers at him and overcommit with the takedowns, but I don't think he would have beaten Dustin. I can see how he beats Gaethje, but I would still say Gaethje beats him. He would have beaten Paddy, and that's pretty much it. Your second question, who will be the UFC champion in 2028 in every weight class? Remember when I predicted the top 5 ranked fighters at lightweight in like the next 4 years, whatever it was? I did actually very well. I mean, it's very hard to have any sort of accuracy on predicting anything at MMA for the next 4 years. And at least I got some fighters in there. Islam wasn't even champion at the time. So let me see. 2028 champions. I would say Tom Aspinall for heavyweight, Magomed Ankalaev for light heavyweight, Hamza for middleweight, Sean Brady for welterweight, Arman Tsarukyan for lightweight, John Silva for featherweight, Umar for bantamweight, Joshua Van for flyweight. Women's bantamweight might be gone by then, but I'll say Norma Dumont. I think Kayla Harrison would retire by then. Natalia Silva for flyweight, and Zhang Weili for strawweight. And then your third question, how sort of the sport of MMA will be if the retired fighters got to be the judges or someone who has trained and know the fight game from inside? What's your take on it? Keep up the good work, brother. Thank you so much, man. And I think it would be a good idea, but the only issue could be bias, because retired fighters train with a lot of different fighters. And if they're judging for one of their teammates or friends, there could be a conflict of interest there. So that's the only thing that could hurt the sport. And that would be one of the worst things that can happen for scoring fights. If they can get fighters who are unbiased, or they make sure not to have the retired fighters score for their friends' fights and they'll have others do it instead. That would be cool. They're going to Troy Hartung, 3-part question in regards to Bo Nickal. When Bo got finished by RDR, the amount of people celebrating it online was insanely high. I don't think I've seen thousands of people being that happy with someone losing while saying things like, "We beat that fraud," or a fighter being an absolute embarrassment since Conor lost to Khabib. I think this is all happening mainly because Bo said he was confident and that he could take on Hamza and other top-ranked fighters in the near future. In your opinion, does Bo deserve all this hate? I personally don't think he does, considering he's usually a pretty easygoing attitude, especially when you compare his attitude to other fighters that had their downfalls celebrated in similar fashion like Ronda Rousey, Colby Covington, McGregor, etc. So for your first question, does he deserve the hate that he gets? What is deserve when it's subjective? You know, fans are going to love and hate any fighters that they want. I don't see any problem with that, honestly. If a lot of people think that Bo Nickal was being cocky and overconfident and that's the reason why they started hitting on his loss to RDR, it's part of the sport and it's been around forever. When fighters talk a big game and they lose, it almost always is mocked or joked or memed or whatever, you know. It's just part of the sport. It's like the high risk, high reward aspect. If Bo Nickal went out there and destroyed RDR and then he actually beat Hamza and the other top contenders, instead of the hate that he has, he would get a magnitude higher of support. Like everybody would be singing this guy's praises. It's similar with Ilia Topuria. Ilia is that guy. Ilia is the guy who talked trash about the top guys, but he beat them. He actually did what he said he was going to do. And so many of the fans love him. He has so many supporters and people think that he's the guy that could beat Islam. Now, can you imagine if he lost? Imagine if he lost a Josh Emmett. Let's say imagine he gets finished in the first or second rounds. The same thing would have happened to him. When fighters talk a big game, they're raising the stakes of their fights. And I think overall it's good for the sport to at least get a reaction out of the audience like that, because no fighter wants to be the guy that nobody cares about, right? Bo Nickal's going to rebound and try to win again, and everybody's going to watch his next fight. Supporters or haters, it's part of the sport. So many fighters were hated throughout their careers, like Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping was hated by everybody for so long until he won the title. Well, actually, I would say when he beat Anderson Silva. When he beat Silva, it showed his perseverance. He got knocked out. He thought he lost the fight. He stood up, continued the fight, and won. Then he wins the belt on 2 weeks' notice against the guy who destroyed him before. Michael Bisping is a fighter that everybody at least paid attention to. And that's generally a good thing for most fighters. Bo Nickal doesn't want to lose that. Bo Nickal still wants to be relevant in MMA. So the cheers or the boos, I don't think it's necessarily a positive or negative thing for the fighter. It just depends on what they want. Like if Bo Nickal wants everybody to like him, then it could be seen as negative. But if Bo Nickal doesn't care and he just wants the noise that comes with it, then no matter what, he's getting support or hate, he's going to enjoy that. So the deserve of the hate, it just depends subjectively according to Bo Nickal himself and of the fans. So that's my thoughts on that. I don't know Bo Nickal, but he did talk a lot. He did say like he would beat Hamza and Robert Whittaker and all these guys, and he didn't beat anybody to that point. How could he be talking like that? Like he really needed to win his fights. And I'll say this, if he loses his next one as well, then the hype train is 100% derailed, because then nobody's going to care about Bo Nickal. And the other thing too is, what if RDR actually reaches to the top of the rankings? Like what if he actually fights Dricus? The fight everybody wants to see, the plot armored fight. Who would win that? Like if RDR actually reaches to those heights, then the narrative would shift on Bo Nickal losing to him. It'll go from he was fraud checked to, okay, he just lost to one of the best, just like other guys did. The RDR loss alone wouldn't be enough to say it was a fraud check. He would have to lose to someone lower level than that, because in that scenario, Whittaker losing to RDR wouldn't be a fraud check either, right? Then it shouldn't be for Bo Nickal too. Again, unless he loses to someone lower. He did talk a big game, and I think there's another aspect to why so many fans don't like Bo Nickal, is that he's gotten preferential treatment in regards of where his fights have been placed. Like he's been on main cards of some of the biggest pay-per-views, and sometimes even over former champions, ranked fighters, and he's fighting like Vel Woodburn, you know? He was on the main card of UFC 300, one of the biggest pay-per-views in UFC history. He was the opener of the card against Cody Brundage. And who was on the prelims? Yuri Prohaska, former champion. Aljamain Sterling, former champion. Davison Figueiredo, Cody Garbrandt, former champions. Bobby Green and Jim Miller, longtime veterans of the UFC. He was on the main card over all of those guys for that one alone, like not to mention the other cards too. And the only time he wasn't on a pay-per-view is the fight that he lost to RDR. So that is another aspect of it that people don't don't like Bo Nickal for, but I think it's more the UFC. I don't understand to hate Bo Nickal for that because he didn't choose to be on the main card. UFC thought that he was going to be a big star and they're trying to push him as one. So they put him on the main card of the pay-per-view so everybody knows him, and he did get a lot of fans, but the hardcore fans of the sport, they all know those former champions and other ranked fighters and stuff. Like, it's crazy to see him on the main card and not Davison Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. Why is that on the early prelims, the first fight of the entire card, when Bo Nickal's on the main card? Multiple spots over them. Like, that's crazy. That's absolutely insane. It's disrespectful, honestly. Or Calvin Kattar versus Aljamain Sterling. Why is that not on the main card, you know? It's a business. They're trying to sell Bo Nickal as a future star. He lost to RDR. I'm not going to say like his aspirations of reaching the top are gone because it's just one loss. And again, it could be that RDR is one of the best middleweights. So it's going to depend now what Bo Nickal's next fight is going to be like. And your second question is about that too. So how fast of a turnaround do you think Bo Nickal should have in regards with his next fight? I think he should train everything. Striking, wrestling, grappling, without taking a fight for a few months at least. Like, focus on just getting better, because training camps are not entirely to get the fighter to level up their entire game. Training camps are usually to prepare them for a specific opponent, not to improve them overall. A lot of that is actually in between camps that they get better as a fighter. Training camps are like where they're specifically training for a certain style. They got to cut weight and all of that. Like, the focus is different. Bo Nickal needs to get better as a fighter. So no focus on an opponent, just focus on his own skills to get better. That's what he needs to do. And not only his striking, but also his wrestling. His wrestling is lacking in MMA. I mean, the guy couldn't even take down Jamie Pickett without a low blow. Come on, man. It's not just a striking. That takedown should not have been as difficult as it was. So I would say he should fight toward the end of the year, maybe in like anywhere from September to December. And then your third question, which fighter should he face next to allow him to gain a combination of good experience, wins, and momentum? My opinion, it should be Eric Anders or Andre Muniz, then Rodolfo Vieira, then maybe someone just outside the top 15 like Mikhail Alexiachuk, and then another shot to get into the top 15 after all those fights. So I can see him fighting any of those guys, but honestly, Eric Anders might be a tough fight. He needs a tune-up fight again. He needs to begin his next momentum here. And I think Anders is too difficult of a fight to do that with. I think Andre Muniz could be a close fight. Adolfo Vieira is going to be a tough one too. I would say, you know who he should fight? Ozzy Diaz. Ozzy Diaz really isn't that great. He's definitely worse than those guys, I think. That would be a good next fight for him. And then if he beats him, then give him Eric Anders. Then give him Rodolfo Vieira. And if he beats Rodolfo Vieira, then Mikhail Alexiachuk, who would be like somewhere in the top 20 of the middleweight division, right? That'd be great for Bo Nickal. So great questions, man. And then we're going to Nano Peach. Hey, Weasel, with Merab being so dominant, do you see any champ being as dominant as him? Right now, no. Besides Zhang Weili, I think Weili is the only one that even is that dominant, you know? Merab is just a very, very special fighter. The cardio that he has is something that you literally cannot train for. You either have it or you don't, or you take EPO. There's no other way for it. And cardio is one of the absolute best attributes to ever have for a fighter. He's well-rounded enough. He's skilled enough as well in all areas. Again, he's not one of the most technical guys at any martial art, but he's good enough everywhere to at least hang with his opponent for the first round or two, and then start taking over the fight. But of course, that would only work if he's fighting someone who also is well-rounded. Like Sean O'Malley, for an example, is not well-rounded, and he can impose his wrestling very early in that fight and make it difficult for O'Malley. But if he fights someone like Umar or Jan in a rematch, or maybe even Sandhagen, Yadong, like all these guys are well-rounded, so he wouldn't be able to steamroll them. Besides Jan, because of the pace issue, he wouldn't be able to steamroll any of those other guys like he did to O'Malley. Like, imagine him fighting Yadong. Yadong is very explosive. He's very fast. He has one-punch knockout power. It would be a different kind of fight for Merab, because Yadong is not tall and long either. Like, he's very compact, very similar to Merab. In fact, O'Malley said the same thing. He said Merab felt very compact and strong out there. Yadong is similar. So whenever Merab is like colliding with Yadong, he could get knocked out in any of those moments. It's a very, very dangerous fight. It's almost like when he fought Cejudo in the first round, but I don't think Cejudo was in his prime. He got rocked in the first round by Cejudo. He ran into the left hook and got stunned by that punch. So imagine that with Yadong, but way more dangerous of a striker. So Merab can have some difficult fights. I'm not going to say he's going to be totally dominant throughout his championship reign. Like, I do think the Umar fight was very competitive. It was not dominant. The fourth and fifth rounds were becoming more dominant as a round, but not the entire fight. He lost the first two rounds. If you lose the first two rounds, it's not dominant. I think the Jan rematch would be a lot more difficult than the first one was. I think Sandhagen could be tricky in moments, but I think he might get dominated, honestly. His only chance is to land a flying knee or something crazy like that. He needs to knock on Merab. There's no other way he beats him. I think Song Yadong can keep up with Merab for the first two rounds before he starts gassing out. So I don't think that fight will be totally dominant, but maybe like the fifth round round could be a 10-8 for Merab, you know? But I will say that out of any champion right now, that he is the most dominant. Jones obviously is not. Well, actually, Tom Aspinall. Is Tom Aspinall more dominant than Merab? Because where Merab is winning decisions and some of these rounds are dominant, Tom Aspinall is putting these guys out within like 2 minutes on the regular. So actually, I will say Tom Aspinall is the most dominant champion right now. Second is Merab. Magomed Ankalaev, I don't think he's going to be dominant, but he could probably beat everybody. Dricus, no, absolutely not. Even if Hamza becomes champ, I don't think he's going to be as dominant as Merab is. JDM, no. If Islam's champ at welterweight, I don't think he's going to be as dominant either. Charles or Ilia at lightweight, no. Volkanovski, no. Pantoja, no. So I would say Tom Aspinall is the most dominant champion right now. Then it's Merab, and then it's everybody else. And then your second question, how are you and how's your family? Great, man. Thank you for asking. And I hope you guys are doing great as well. And then your next question is Kayla versus Nunes. A factor that a lot of people are not considering is that she is 37. Do you think that's a factor? Yeah, absolutely. Especially not having fought for so long. Nunes might not be the same at all. And if she isn't, Kayla's going to take her down and rip her arm off. I don't think there's a single fighter that could stop any submission from her. If she grabs an arm or a leg or a neck, like she's taking it home with her. And there's not a thing the fighter could do except tap out. Like when she got that Kimura on Juliana Pena, it looked like Juliana could not do a single thing at all. She was trying to fight it, but half a second in and the fight was over. I know a lot of people think she's on steroids. Honestly, dude, she does look like she's on steroids. Like, and I think she would say that too. But she was like that in the Olympics. She won gold twice at the Olympics. And if she didn't test positive over there, I don't think she's on steroids. Imagine going to the Olympics twice and never testing positive. Then your next question, Conor at UFC 205 would have beaten Khabib or Tony that day, time for all three. What do you think? No. He could have beaten Tony, but he would never beat Khabib. Tony would have been an interesting one though, because I could see how both guys beat each other. Tony's just like, in his prime, he was like a better version of Nate Diaz. He could do what Nate does. He has a similar reach and all that with more punching power. And I think he could have drowned Conor in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds. I would say Tony would have a better chance of beating Conor, but I can see how Conor TKOs him as well. But Tony as prime was so tough, very hard to finish. It would have been interesting, but I actually don't think the UFC 205 Conor was the best version of him. I honestly think it was featherweight. Featherweight Conor was different. Parity to the weight class, he was punching harder. Like he was knocking these guys out. He knocked out Jose Aldo with one punch. He didn't do that a single time when he fought at lightweight in the UFC. Even against Eddie Alvarez, he needed like a million punches to get that guy out of there. He couldn't finish Nate Diaz at 170. He hit Khabib with some good shots, never rocked him. He hit Dustin with some of the cleanest punches I've ever seen from him and didn't knock him out. Now Dustin did say after that if Conor followed up from those punches, he would have finished him. That's how hurt Dustin was, but still. When he fought him at featherweight, it took one punch to put him down. One punch against Jose Aldo to put him down. One punch against Diego Brandao. Featherweight Conor, I think, was the very best. He fought differently. He did have that karate stance and stuff, and he was very elusive, threw a lot better kicks in that weight class as well. Like he wasn't just a puncher, and he had the power compared to the weight class, which was more effective than at lightweight. There is an argument for Dustin 2 Conor as being the best version of him, but I think the power difference puts his featherweight version ahead. So the argument for Dustin 2 Conor would be that his boxing technique was better than ever, which it was, and that the lack of leg kick defense was always a weakness against southpaws, no matter if he took the boxing stance or the karate stance. So it doesn't really make as much of a difference for the stance improving his defense. That is generally the argument for it, but I think featherweight Conor is still better. And then your next question, is Mick's debut the worst debut from a champion from another promotion? Patchy Mix, yeah. Patchy Mix's UFC debut may be one of the worst. Like, I've watched his fights at Bellator. He's looked so much better over there. Now, there is the argument that he's fighting Bellator fighters, so of course he's going to look better. But some of the Bellator fighters he went up against over there were also UFC fighters. He fought Sergio Pettis and Kyoji Horiguchi. Both of those guys were some of the best when they fought in the UFC. Now, it could also be because they were so much smaller than him. Both those guys fought at flyweight. But even just watching his fights, he's fought better than that. He's always been flat-footed and quite slow with his striking, but not shooting takedowns consistently in any of that. And I think it was against Kyoji Horiguchi, who's very fast, faster than Mario Batista. He threw a straight at Patchy Mix, and Mix slipped the punch, wrapped around his back, and went for the rear naked choke. Like, you didn't see any of that against Mario Batista. Batista's throwing a lot of the same kind of punches with slower speed to Horiguchi, and Mix just did not react to the punches at all. Like, he was Mario Batista's heavy bag out there. Like, he was there to just take punches to the face. And then he started to come alive at the end of the 3rd round. It's like, whoa, where was that guy this whole time? Maybe it was the Octagon jitters, which a lot of fighters have said are real. I mean, even like Rampage. Quentin Jackson said when he came to the UFC, that he also had Octagon jitters. And that's a guy who fought in Pride in front of tens of thousands in the Super Saitama Arena in the biggest MMA organization in the world at that time. And he had Octagon jitters when he came to the UFC. And if someone like that can get it, I'm pretty sure Patchy Mix felt it as well. And we have to also remember that Eddie Alvarez got torched by Donald Cerrone in his UFC debut. He had like a good 20 seconds of the first round where he just rushed Donald Cerrone in the clinch, and Cerrone always had a very slow start to then destroying Alvarez after. And he eventually became champion. So we'll see with Patchy Mix. He's still in his prime. And again, he hasn't fought in a year. UFC debut, I'll chalk it up to Octagon jitters until his next fight, which is crazy because in Chandler's debut, he finished Dan Hooker in the first round. Like, that's crazy, right? And then he fought for a title. It made it a very tough fight for Charles Oliveira. Justin Gaethje came from World Series of Fighting, and he has some very good performances. So, yes, most Bellator fighters aren't good, but with Patchy Mix being one of the best from there, I will wait on his next fight for any further opinions on how good he is. Great questions, man. And then we're going to Damian Robb. Thoughts on the Mighty Guru show? I haven't watched it, but I think it's really cool to see an MMA YouTuber collab with a fighter to do a show with. I think it's awesome, and might see more of that with other YouTubers, make it bigger on the scene as well. I think it's a very good thing. But if it's good, I'll watch it, so you guys can let me know. They're going to modern day stoic. Top 5 greatest ducks in MMA history. Is that enough space for Jon Jones to take all 5? So we got Jon Jones ducking Tom Aspinall, Bones ducking Ngannou, Sexual Chocolate ducking Stipe in 2021, the Ipo King ducking USADA under an octagon, and Steroid Cheat ducking Chael Sonnen in a short notice. So yes, Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall is the biggest duck in UFC history. Daniel Cormier ducking Stipe Miocic and instead fought Derek Lewis, and he also wanted to fight Brock Lesnar instead. But yes, he ducked him to fight Lewis. Michael Bisping ducking Yoel Romero, GSP ducking the Johnny Hendricks rematch, and honestly, Jon Jones ducking the Dominic Reyes rematch, and the Chael Sonnen short notice fight. He literally didn't want to fight him, and they canceled the entire UFC 151 card, but he did fight him later. So, and then we go to Austin's Oasis. Top 5 favorite books. Favorite books? I only have 3 favorite books. The Bible's number 1, The Book of 5 Rings, and The Art of War. And then go to Yoel Castro. Imagine you have to create the best fighter ever, but they have to have at least one major Achilles heel. How would you structure this dream fighter? Wait, so am I trying to make the Achilles heel a very big weakness? Or am I trying to make him as unbeatable as I can while he has a weakness? So creating the best fighter ever. I would say if he had like Khabib's grappling, Ilia Topuria striking, Merab's cardio, Marvin Vettori's chin, Alex Pereira's power, but his Achilles heel is that he's deaf. Is that big enough of an Achilles heel? So if we can't do deaf, then I would say his Achilles heel would be is that he's as slow as Jake Collier. I think that's a pretty big Achilles heel, but I still think he'd be unbeatable. Then we go to the Haitian sensation. If Ilia loses to Charles, will Ilia vacating the featherweight belt be the biggest career sabotage since Henry retired in his prime? Dude, Henry retiring in his prime was, oh man. He came back like 3 years later or whatever it was, then out of his prime. He didn't get anything he was trying to actually negotiate for because it seemed like he retired to get like a big fight or whatever or get a lot more money, and it didn't work. Like, he should have just fought, man. Why did he retire in his prime? That's so crazy. I think Cejudo's legacy, it would have been so much better if he never retired. But yes, if Ilia loses to Charles, him vacating his featherweight belt, I would say would be the second biggest career sabotage after Henry Cejudo. The reason why it's not as big is because he can always fight at featherweight again, and there's not a lot of guys that would beat him. It also depends how he loses to Charles. If he gets starched, first round knockout, who knows if he's the same fighter after? That can change Ilia as a fighter because remember, he's still undefeated. He's never experienced a loss in MMA. Charles has lost 100 times. A loss to him doesn't do anything. He just gets better after. And in that scenario, the first loss of Ilia, let's say it is by a finish, like a head kick knockout in the first or second rounds, because that's when most likely he would get finished. Who knows what his confidence would be like after. And just like we talk about with Bo Nickal, Ilia is still raising the stakes of his fights by talking a big game. He's saying that he's going to run right through Charles like it's nothing. And if he gets KO'd like that, on the grand stage, main event of a pay-per-view, who knows what that would do to Ilia's seemingly unshakable confidence. The aura of superiority that he has would wither away. So yeah, I would say if he loses to Charles, and especially by knockout, him vacating the featherweight belt would be the biggest career sabotage since Henry Cejudo retired. Great question, man. And then we go to Angelo the Death Metal. Should the UFC implement Speedo-wearing Octagon boys for female fights? Kind of makes sense, to be honest. Is that you, Jon Jones? Didn't they do that with Elias Theodoro? RIP. But they didn't put him in a Speedo. So no, I don't think the UFC would ever do that unless somehow Jon Jones became the UFC president. They would have Muller Munich. Is it time for Sean O'Malley to move up to 145? I don't think so. I might have the unpopular opinion, but I think O'Malley gets destroyed at 145. He just said how strong Merab felt. Bro, Merab's got nothing on Volk strength. That fight's different, dude. Like, O'Malley's not doing a thing to get out of that grip. And a lot of his natural advantages at bantamweight go away at featherweight. He doesn't have the reach advantage over everybody. Most of the guys actually have the same reach as O'Malley at featherweight. Some of those guys are the same height, whereas at bantamweight, it's like you got 1 or 2 guys that can match the height and reach of O'Malley. At featherweight, it's maybe around half of them can, and it's also a very skilled division, so I think O'Malley gets destroyed at featherweight. He should stay at bantamweight and just get better, fight the other top contenders, improve as much as he can, and that's pretty much it. I think he could stay in the top 7 for his entire career. And then with a Pac-Man, should Octagon girls be allowed to win the performance of the night bonus, or would it be unfair as Red De La Cruz would win it in most nights? Performance bonus? Like, what would they have to do different from each other to get a bonus? I mean, they're holding cards up, so I'm guessing the hottest one gets the bonus. In that case, Red De La Cruz and Brooklyn Wren easily win the bonuses every time. 100%. They're leagues above the others. They'll get Ash and Warden. At this point, what could revive the UFC and bring them back into the limelight rather than this low point they're in now? It would just be undoing things. Give the fights that the fans want to see is the most important one. Number 1 contenders should be fighting champions. No more undeserved title shots. No protecting stars. Get out of the apex. Work with the commission to change the rules. There's no reason fighters should be winning with eye pokes and headbutts. That makes absolutely no sense. And that's pretty much it. Be organic with the superstars. Don't force them on the fans as if they have to like them. I think those are all the most important things of what the UFC needs to do. There's a TV deal as well, and I think regardless, people are going to be watching wherever they go. But the number 1 issue that they have is that they're not putting on the fights that the fans want to see. The UFC used to live and breathe by that. And not only are they not doing that, it's like they're making an effort to not give us the fights we want. Like, if Yair is fighting Volk, I just don't understand the thought process of skipping over the Lopez fight for Yair. They built the fight off of one press conference themselves. It was there for the UFC to just grab contracts, give it to both fighters, and have them sign them. That's all they needed to do. Just make the fight. But rather than that, they might give Yair a title shot. All the problems that the UFC has right now, they have inflicted on themselves. Nobody else did this to the UFC. They did it to themselves. The fans have been telling the UFC on how to fix their product for them to watch it. The consumer is telling the producer and what they want, and they still don't do it. We want the integrity of the sport to stay intact. That is the most important thing for the sport, but it's frustrating to watch every single time. It's like a new fight and nobody asked for it. It doesn't make any sense, and if anything, it just damages the brand even further. They would have Tim Neste, who's the worst fighter you've ever seen in the UFC. CM Punk, obviously, and then maybe like James Toney and the women featherweight bantamweights. Those would all be like some of the worst fighters the UFC's ever had. Then we go to PDP Daily. What is the most overrated performance in MMA history? Cody Garbrandt versus Dominic Cruz was definitely overrated because Cruz won some rounds. I think he won 2 rounds on the scorecards. Cody did get a 10-8, but the narrative from the fight was that Cody dominated. He had some of the best moments. The highlights are definitely Cody styling on Cruz, but a lot of people don't talk about the success Cruz had in that fight. So I'll say that is one of the most overrated performances. Still a great performance. He beat, at the time, the greatest bantamweight, but the way that people talk about that performance, I think is overrating it heavily. I'll also say Merab versus Umar, because again, it's similar with Cody. People talk about it like as if Merab dominated him the entire fight when he lost the first 2 rounds. It was 3-2, competitive fight, but maybe it's because a lot of people expected Umar to beat him that Merab's performance excited the narrative after. Maybe that's what it is, but it still is overrating the performance itself. Great performance, but again, overrated in that sense. I think Jamal Hill versus Glover Teixeira was also very overrated. A great win for Jamal Hill, but let's be honest, man, Glover was washed at that point. It was his retirement fight after a war against Yuri Prohaska. He was in his 40s, very slow out there. And after the fight, people were saying like Jamal Hill was such an insane light heavyweight because he beat the most washed version of Glover ever. Oh, Brian Ortega's performance against Alexander Volkanovski was overrated in the sense that people thought it was a close fight. I remember all the talk about that fight after, People were saying that Ortega gave us such a close fight with Volk. He had some close moments in winning with the guillotine and the triangle choke, but the entirety of the rest of the fight was Volk beating him up. I always disagree with that one. When people were saying like it was fight of the year too and stuff, there's no way a mostly one-sided performance can be fight of the year. Ortega literally had like 2 moments in the entire fight. And I think in saying that Ortega made the fight close, it does underrate Volk's performance because Volk dominated him more, right? And he almost finished him at the 3rd round, which honestly should have been a finish. When he was ground and pounding him after the submissions from Ortega, Ortega could not stand up himself. His coaches picked him up and put him on a stool. That should be a TKO win for Volkanovski. The fighter themselves have to get up. Very similar to the Cruz and Garbrandt fight was Belal versus Leon. A lot of the highlights of the fight make it seem like Belal destroyed him out there, but if you rewatch the fight, Leon did a lot better than the post-fight narrative. Rewatching the fight, it's still a good performance from Belal, but it's not nearly as dominant as it seemed. So I would say those are the most overrated performances off the top of my head. And that is ultimately the end of the episode, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you guys did, make sure you give it a like, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video.